Hi class, in this video we're going to look at an example from chapter 6. This example is based on P6-18, so it's very similar to the one that you'll have for homework. So let's look at the instructions on this one. This problem has to do with activity-based costing, so we're going to learn how to cost out different activities that relate to a particular job, and this example uses an asbestos removal company. So it says Mercer Asbestos Removal Company removes toxic asbestos. They're arguing over how to cost these jobs because sometimes there's some activities that they have to do that are in addition to what they regularly do when they start to remove asbestos. So there's some non-routine work. And they might not know about that non-routine work until they actually get in there and start tearing some things out. So they're arguing as to how do we cost for jobs. One of the supervisors says, well, I have a cost per square foot, and I cost every job that way, and that exceeds our regular cost, so that kind of gives us a padding so that if we run into some non-routine costs, we'll be okay because we're charging over. Then the other argument is, well, we should charge an additional amount for jobs that are non-routine, so kind of like an additional service charge, sort of, for that non-routine work. So there's this argument going about, well, how do we cost out those things? How do we know what costs to allocate for routine versus non-routine costs? So to figure out the answer to those questions and to determine how we're going to cost out a job, whether it's routine or non-routine, we're going to do kind of a cost study here. So we've got some information. It says they've got several activities that they do for each job. So this says, this over here, under activity cost pool, those are the different types of activities that they would do for each job. So they're going to remove asbestos. They're going to estimate and do the job setup. So that takes some time. So there's resources used there. Working on non-routine jobs, if they run into issues and they have to do some additional work, then this one would apply, and that one would not apply to every job, but on jobs that they ran into some additional work and non-routine stuff, that one would apply. And then they have some other costs, and they've got a kind of a summary: cost of idle capacity and organization sustaining costs. So stuff that is overall administrative costs or costs that they're paying for, whether they're working or not, those would all be in other. And here's the activity measure that they use in those. So thousands of square feet. So when they remove asbestos, they're going to cost that by the square foot. For each square foot that they remove asbestos, it costs them X number of dollars. Estimating and job setup, they cost that out by the number of jobs because they probably have to do this one time for each job. So they just have a base amount per job that they're going to cost that out. Working on non-routine jobs, they're going to allocate that based on the number of non-routine jobs. So they would look at their total cost for non-routine stuff and then cost that out or spread that out for each job. And then other activities doesn't have an activity measure, so it says none. So let's scroll down a little bit. It says they have 100 non-routine jobs that they included in the total of 400 jobs. So here's their cost for the year of 400 jobs, and 100 of those are non-routine. And then it says both non-routine jobs and routine jobs require estimating and setup. So we know some costs apply to everything. And then down here we've got distribution of resource consumption across activities. So they're telling us we have all these categories of costs. So wages and disposal fees, equipment depreciation, etc. So all of those things have a cost. And we're going to allocate those across each activity. So we have 3 or 4 activities: removing the asbestos, doing the estimating and job setup, working on non-routine jobs, and other. So what this chart is telling us essentially is that of 100, we have wages and salaries, and we have a total of 100% of that cost, and we're going to spread that 100% of wages and salaries cost up across 4 categories, which are the 4 activities. So 50% of our wages and salaries are spent in the removal of asbestos. 15% of our wages and salary are spent paying people who do the estimating and job setup. 20% of our wages and salary went to working on non-routine stuff, so tearing out asbestos around pipes or whatever it is. And then 15% of that is other and other like administrative or things that don't really pertain to these other three. So if you add the 50%, the 15, the 20, and the 15, you get 100% of wages and salary. So that's how this chart works. Every line breaks out 100% of that expense cost across these four activities. And sometimes you'll see zero because disposal fees are zero under estimating and job setup because they don't have to dispose of anything when they're doing just estimation and job setup. That doesn't come until they actually remove the asbestos. All right, so now that we've looked through the information that we have, we're going to do requirement 1, which says perform the first stage allocation of cost to the activity pools. So what they're asking us to do is to take these costs up here, we have cost for the year, and to allocate them across these activities, and to do that we'll use these percentages. So I've made a chart down here. We've got the four activities across the top: removing asbestos, estimating job setup, working on non-routine jobs, and other. And then we've got all of our expenses listed down here to the side. All right, so let's start with wages and salary. It says we had $420,000 of wages and salaries for the year. It also says that 50% of that went to wages and salaries for removal of asbestos. So we take $420,000. Let me set a 0, and multiply that by 50%. Make my column a little bigger. We get $210,000. So 50% or half of the $420,000 we spent on salaries and wages went to the removal of asbestos. So we're going to do that all the way across. We're going to use $420,000, but we're going to multiply it by a different percent in each case. We got 15% for estimating job setup. So let's do that one. And let's say 20% for non-routine jobs. And I think it's 15% for other. Oops, 420,000 times 0.15. So my columns are too small. All right, so then my total would be the sum of all those. It's $420,000, and this amount should match the total amount that we spent up here, because this is the total wages and salaries. We're just breaking it up across each activity. So we're going to do the same thing for disposal fees, and it says $814,000 was the total disposal fees. We're going to multiply that by the correct percentage up here. So it was 60% under removing asbestos. It was 0 under estimating job setup. It was, and the other 40% goes under working on non-routine jobs. So let's see, that was 814,000 times 40%. Make my column a little bigger, and then the next one was 0. And so we can do our sum across. Should be 814,000 because that's the total amount that we spent. Equipment depreciation was 96,000. We're going to multiply that by, looks like 40% for removing asbestos. And by 5% for estimating and job setup. Oops, forgot my equals. And for non-routine, 20%. And let's see, 35% to other. We can do our total across, and it should be 96,000 because that's our total equipment depreciation. On-site supplies were $62,000. So same process, $62,000 times 60% for removal and 30% for job setup, and 10% for non-routine, and $0 for other. So if we total across, it should be $62,000. Moving right along to office expenses. Office expenses were $320,000. We're going to multiply that by 15%. And then for estimating and job setup, let's see, it's 35%. Oops, I left my decimal out. And for non-routine, 20%. And for other, 30%. And let's add those across. Still should be the total of our expenses, which was $320. And licensing and insurance was $520. So we got $520,000 multiplied by 25% for the first one. Whoops, that one was 0. Nothing for estimating and setup. 60% for non-routine, and 15% for other. Oops, that was 520. All right, and then we can sum up each of our columns. So down here we've got $2,232,000. That should equal our total cost up here, because we've just taken that those total numbers and just allocated them. So that those two should match. All right, so requirement 2, excuse me, says compute the activity rates for the activity cost pools. So I made a little chart because I think it's a little easier to do. So we've got for each cost pool, and we have let's see, we're going to do 3. We're not going to do the other one. So removing asbestos, estimating and job setup, working on non-routine jobs. So we're going to compute an activity rate. The reason that we're not doing the other, if we scroll up here, there is no activity measure for other. In other words, we're not trying to figure out how much does other cost per square foot, or how much does other cost per job, or how much does other cost per I don't know, number of days or whatever. We're not figuring out a cost per anything for others. So it says none there, so we're going to not do that. But the other 3, we are going to find out a cost per each activity. So removing asbestos, we need a total cost, and that total cost is from this chart in part 1. So removing asbestos, if we added together all the costs for removing asbestos, which would be all our wages, all our disposal fees, depreciation, office expenses and supplies, and licensing and insurance. So all this stuff here represents our total cost. So our total cost is $952,000. Our total activity, we get that from the instructions. So in other words, how many activities did we do? Up here we have our total activity. It says 800,000 square feet. So our total activity is 800,000 square feet. Oops. So that's how many square feet of asbestos removals that we did. So if we do the math on that, we can actually take the $952,000 divided by 800,000 1,000 square feet. Oops. Let's do it this way, because they're doing this by 1,000 square feet. So let me write it the way they've got it in the instructions. So 800. It might help it to be more clear. So they're doing this cost per 1,000 square feet. So for every 1,000 square feet we do, this removing asbestos costs us what? So if we take the $952,000 and divide it by 800, which is the number of units of 1,000 square feet that we have, we get an activity rate of $1,190, and that is per 1,000 square feet. And that's just the way they've got it set up to cost it out. So they've got it set up to cost it by each increment of 1,000 square feet. All right, estimating and job setup. I'm going to go back to chart 1 again. We have a total cost of that of $198,400. And up here, let's see, all the way up at the top chart, it says our total activity is 400 jobs. In other words, they're gonna charge what per job? So their activity is by the job on this one. So 400 jobs is the total activity that they had. So we can actually calculate an amount per job if we know that much information. So this one is the 198,400, and we're going to divide that by the number of jobs. Gives us $496, and that is per job. Then working on non-routine jobs, we have a total cost there of $811,000. That came from the chart we just did in requirement 1. Excuse me. Total activity is 100 non-routine jobs. So they're going to spread this cost out by the job as well. But they're just doing it by the non-routine jobs. So our activity rate is the total cost divided by that 100 non-routine jobs, gives us $8,110, and that one is per, well, the book's called it per product, or you could say per job, since it's, well, we probably be more clear, because it's really not per job, it's per non-routine job. So either way, however you want to phrase that, but it's one charge of $8,110 for every non-routine job they do. So it's not going by square feet or anything like that. They're just doing it by the job. All right, so that's requirement 2. Requirement 3 says, using the activity rates you have computed, determine the total cost and average cost per 1,000 square feet of each of the following jobs according to the activity-based costing system. So we're going to use these costs here. We're going to figure out the cost of 3 different jobs. So job A, it says a routine job, that's 1,000 square foot asbestos removal. All right. So if we have 1,000 square foot of removing asbestos, and I've got our 3 activities here that we were going to cost out. So we've got our removing asbestos, estimating a job setup, and then non-routine job costs. So the removing of asbestos up here, it says, is $1,190 per 1,000 square feet. Well, this job is 1,000 square feet. So we've got 1 unit of 1,000 square feet times that activity rate. So we've got 1190, whoops, that it's going to cost us for removing asbestos. So we've got that taken care of right here. Estimating and job setup, it said in the instructions every job has this cost. Every job gets an estimation and a job setup fee. So that's $496. This is 1 job, and this is the cost per job. So we're just going to move that down. The non-routine stuff only applies to a non-routine job, and this says it's a routine asbestos removal. So that's 0. So the total cost of our job is $1,686. And the average cost per square feet is still $1,686. And let me tell you why. Let me put this down there. It's $1,686 per 1,000 square feet. The 1,000 square feet is for estimating a job setup, that's the amount per job. So we've got 1 unit of that. Removing asbestos, that already is an amount per 1,000 square feet. So the amount per square feet divided by the 1 unit of 1,000 square feet is still 1686. All right, B says a routine 2,000 square foot asbestos removal job. So this one should be fairly easy, just like the first one. So if it cost us $1,190 per 1,000 square feet to remove asbestos, then to remove 2,000 square feet, we're going to double that. So $1,190 times 2. So that gives us $2,380. Estimating job setup, that's a per job cost. So it doesn't change, $496 per square foot. And we don't have any non-routine costs because this is a routine job. So our total cost of the job is $2,876. Now, if we're going to figure out how much that is per 1,000 square feet, we're going to take all of this, so $2,876, and we're going to divide it by 2. Because all of this cost is for 2,000 square feet, and we need it to be per 1,000 square feet. So our average cost per square feet is $1,438. All right, a non-routine 2,000 square foot asbestos removal job. Well, we're going to take the cost per 1,000 square feet of removing asbestos times 2, which is $2,380. That's actually the same as it is up here. Didn't change, it's still 2,000 square feet. It's $496 for estimation and setup for any job, doesn't matter if it's routine or non-routine. But then we have that non-routine job cost, and that is $8,110. So we can calculate our total cost for this job is $10,986. And that's actually for 2,000 square feet of job, but we want to know how much it is for 1,000 square feet. So we're going to take the total, divide it by 2, and that gives us $5,493 per 1,000 square feet. And that's the last requirement on P6-18. So hopefully this made sense to you. I think the tricky part to me is calculating its average cost per square feet. With the 1,000 square feet, it's not too hard. But then remembering, well, what do we divide by in these others? So understanding that these total costs are actually the total cost per however many square feet you have. So we're working with units of 1,000 square feet. So I kind of want to divide it by, well, right here, I kind of want to divide it by 2,000. But that's going to give me per square foot. And I would need a cost per 1,000 square feet. So hopefully, if you think through that, that makes sense. The rest of it, I don't think there's anything too tricky about that, except maybe this one, knowing the per what part. So we're just going to calculate based on what they're telling us in the instructions is how they cost things out. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, as always, give me a call.